Oh, and we're live. So, hey, welcome to episode 5 of season 5 of the Operation Grow Show, the breeding project season adventure into how long can we actually keep the season going for and not lose our sanity. So, yeah,
We're supposed to have sanity? I forgot mine.
optional extra. Um, so, actually, on today we're going to have hopefully Cascadian manages to join us, and also Lemon Hoko. I know there were some he got snowed in quite heavily and there had some power issues, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, while we wait for them, just a quick gentlemen, nice to see you all. How's everybody doing? Black Sail Market, Keith, sir. Don't want to keep you hanging around any longer than we absolutely have to. How are you doing? So, how's things going in sunny Colorado?
Oh, dude, it's not really sunny right now. I like how Pete started the show. He just he goes, and we're live. I wasn't like picking my nose or like talking shit about somebody or but yeah, man, I'm doing great. It is freezing, like literally freezing cold out here in Colorado. We're down about like 0 degrees tonight, I think, and it's supposed to snow. So
Cool.
it's good for the garden, man. Keeps things nice and cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am wrapping up this latest run of Orange Gasm, and she's looking just incredible. I let her go a little longer this time, and I'm getting some really great colors. She's putting on a show for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Other than that, it's just par for the course. Oh, there is a sale going on this month at Black Sail Market. You can get your cannons for $350 a piece. So that's about $1.09 a watt.
Nice.
Check that out. BlackSailMarket.com.
Oh, excellent.
Raptor, is that wheat or is it cereal?
Oh, is it mushrooms?
You're both right. It's it's a grain that has it's a very fun grain. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Just did some harvesting actually. So yeah, super stoked. Actually,
Okay.
they're called philosopher stones.
Oh.
Yeah. They'll be good. They'll be good. I'm gonna be trying them out. It's been 5 weeks, almost 6 weeks since I inoculated it, and it went through most of the jar. So I just actually harvested the top part that was fully developed, and then the rest I just scooped out and did a grain transfer onto new, freshly sterilized grains. So yeah, we'll see. It doesn't look like much. A couple grams. Let's see. You see that big chunk?
Okay.
That's the stone.
Hang on, let me
I think I got Lem.
blending with your background. Nice. Yeah, hey Lemon,
Yeah.
nice to see you. And also Lefty
How's it going,
jumped
Lemon?
in as well.
Yeah, that was the update. I'm doing grain transfers and inoculating a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I'll post pictures. I just did a live actually. That's why I'm a couple minutes late. Made sure to just wash up real quick and then jump back on. So
Guys,
yeah.
I'm having trouble
busy
pulling
man.
up your YouTube chat. I think maybe a moderator needs to say something in the chat window in order to get
Oh,
it
Pete.
started.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to
No.
let you know.
It's
All
good.
right,
It's good. And
I
we
just
want
did
people to
evening all.
interact.
No, it said something to me as well, and then it should be. I mean, I've posted into the chat now, so hopefully, if anybody's watching, that should now be working. You might have to just refresh your screen for it to pick it up, I think. The Keith or whoever it
Yep.
is it
Good to
that
go.
solved
It's
it?
popping.
Cool,
Yep.
Cool. Welcome
F5 for
everyone.
chats.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna be over here separating the grain from the stones and gonna be having a fun night. Maybe make a very fun oatmeal.
Yeah, that would be a
Yeah.
very fun oatmeal.
Actually, technically this would be a millet meal, but yeah. Not nitpicking. It's
Come down in the
we'll
morning
see how that
for,
goes. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
hey, where's my bowl of philosophers? And you see the parents at, whoa.
yeah. Yeah. Thanks again for the intro. Yeah. Oh, I'm almost 2 weeks into flower, so yeah, stoked for that. Should be good. Yeah. from here, it's smooth sailing, hopefully.
Nice.
Made sure to separate everything. All that's good. So, yeah, it's looking very good. And I'm going to be hiking tomorrow, so I won't be able to set up my light. I'm going to be talking with Purple Thumb, OG, and Ganja Grower. Shout out to them both. They're going to be helping me put together my DIY light. So,
Cool.
yeah. From there, I'm just going to be setting up my tent, breaking down the leftovers of my bed that's behind me, and this will be my grow room / study / studio. So,
What kind of
yeah.
load are you building, man?
HLG, one of the quantum boards. Yeah, I got a deal on them, so should be
Oh, that'll be
interesting.
easy, dude. All you have to do is like screw the board onto the heatsink
Yeah,
and plug
plug
it
and
in.
play,
Yeah.
I just like to have people that actually know electrical wiring, watching over me to make sure I don't fuck everything up. But I feel like those are pretty hard to mess up. Just like you're
Someone
saying,
at the
oh, it's
ready.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
If you
enjoy
can
that
put
little
together
unexpected flow of
Legos,
electricity. It'll wake you up in the morning.
It's called
yeah, I bet.
999.
But yeah, if you can put together a Lego set, you can put together a light. So save some money, and also too,
Keith's
uh,
like, no, you can't. No.
Actually, yeah, you can. I totally agree. And if you can fuck up a Lego set, then you can fuck up a light.
That's true. Yeah. So start with the Lego set, see where you are, and following instructions. If you fuck that up a couple times, maybe go for another Lego set. Get your kid to help. Maybe they would help out. Little nephew,
Hey, look,
niece.
just forget the Lego set. Hit Black Sale Market, dude. He's got
Hit
a
the Black
sale.
Sale
Just
Market.
hit
Yeah,
Black
there you
Sale
go.
Market.
If
Pre-built
you
Lego
can't do
set.
it yourself, leave it to a professional. Keith over here knows what he's doing. Yeah, I can't wait to hear for your the newest and greatest of what's coming out in this
Yeah.
year, next year. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that more. But enough about me. We'll move on with the panel. Yeah, who's up next?
So, DMF, how you doing, sir? How you been keeping?
Oh, can't complain. Just doing weird experiments, smoking fermented weed, doing stupid stuff. So, but hanging out with you guys, which
Excellent.
to me is a great day. So I'm a lucky guy. I get to hang out with y'all.
Good.
Good stuff.
And country, underground, how you doing,
What's
sir?
going on, everybody? I'm doing well, man. The breeding project is off and running. I've got some beans that's coming up. Look for 2 good males. The female I know, I've known her for a while. And I got a GMO tent running, and that's in week 4. I'll be flipping that on Monday. So that's pretty much what I got going on, man. That's pretty much it. I don't have any greenhouse going or nothing like that. No hemp running right now because I'm looking for a house. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Nice. Good luck with that one, yeah. And from the regular crew, Lefty, how you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good. On the road today, so don't get to see the beautiful face, just get to hear the annoying voice.
The face for radio.
You can talk dirty to us later.
You're keeping that for your fans only subscription. Yeah, and I would also like to say thank you to our first 2 patrons, Pip Jam and Oz Grows, I believe it is. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to get the right name from real name. Australian Grown. That's it. Yes, so big shout. Thank you to you guys.
What up, Pip? What up, brother?
Very cool. Yeah, by the way, so yeah, in chat, if you do want to support the show, then you can do so over at the link I just posted up there, which would be really appreciated. And we're going to be doing some stuff where we probably look at some of the reward levels being seeds from everybody's breeding project. You can then sort of grow along with the same generation of seeds that are being used on the show, which could be interesting. People can have a little play and see how things go. But then does sort of bring us on to one of our guests for tonight. I don't know what's happened to Cascadian. Hopefully he's all right and not lost in a forest somewhere on his way over still. But Lemon Hoko, how are you doing? So how are you doing this evening or afternoon, your time? Still snowed in there.
Yeah, it's afternoon, but yeah, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I've lurked on your channel before, and you've got some awesome guests every week, and I feel privileged to be here, actually. Cascadian, in our area, we had a really super heavy snowfall last night. I'm not sure if his area went down in electricity, but all of Graham, I mean, it's a big city here, the whole city of Graham went down. So I just barely got back on a few hours ago. Thought I might have missed the show, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, that's what I suspected. Maybe if you guys are close enough, it could have that bad weather could have come through. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, well, so,
he's about 20
oh,
minutes away from me. So
speak of the devil,
oh, he's coming in. Good.
he's coming in. Yeah. So I know that Cascadian. Let me find. Yeah, there we go. In on the show. Hey there, buddy.
Hey, folks.
All good. All good.
Yeah, man. Sorry I'm late. I overslept.
That's okay. That's okay. Give me some time to wake up because I know you wanted to do a little an overview, high level piece. You know, just a half an hour or so on. You got to remind me. I just had a brain
Yeah, this
fart.
one.
Hardy
This one's
Weinberg,
the Hardy Weinberg. Yep.
not Harvey
Yeah.
Firestein, Hardy Weinberg.
Which, again, yeah. So let me just put in the picture. You know, the whole idea behind this season is it's getting at the plant breeding side of things, and we're trying to actually cover topics that are some of the building blocks for just getting to understand what you're seeing in front of you, so that you can unpick and follow on. Like, why am I seeing this trait? Following it through, you can understand what some of the underlying mechanics are that are at play. So when we're making decisions, etc., we're trying to do it as fairly high level, general as possible, trying to stick to, so we get the thing about the terminology, BX and BC. So, and on that side of things, but then I thought, oh, well, it'd be interesting afterwards, after Cascadians, but to talk about that, but also to get into, what are some of the traits that are easy to follow through. So when you're getting into this and you're starting it for the first time, what are certain things that maybe, like from your experience, and that you realize, oh, these always go together. So don't try and separate some of this stuff apart, because you just won't. These do go, which will tie in a bit with what Cascadian is talking about as well. But then what are some of the traits that are ones that can be tracked fairly easily when you first start out doing it? So I think that would make it quite.
Did you want me to go ahead and answer that, or is that just the outline?
Yeah, that's kind of outline like the general theme of what we'll get up to on the show today. So yeah, that's not one for here and now. I mean, it's like that's kind of get the thought juices going on.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, not so like on the spot and go. So yeah. So on that note, I mean, Cascadian, do you want? I haven't able to screen. You can screen share away if you did want to share anything, or.
Yeah, I got a couple slides here. I'm trying to bring it up. A moment, sir.
Cool. Yeah, and I know that the Mystery Growers breeding project is going on fairly well there. He's shucking the seeds at the moment by the thousands. I think that's why they're trying to figure out ways of doing things with automatic seed counters. It's what they automatic seed sorters more than counters. Something that can actually do them and then pick out the healthy ones while they're doing it at the same time. That would make life nice and easy.
That would be a game changer. Yeah. Okay, there we go.
Just want to say real quick, I see all these familiar names like Pip Jam in there, and I mean everybody. I appreciate you guys being here, man. You guys are a good community. I see you guys all around, so you guys are a cool community. Stu, you're another one. You're always around. You never get any sleep, man.
Yeah, some of the people, it's like, it's scary. I don't know, what do you do? I mean, I know there's a pandemic, but still, what do you do? Because some of you do this before the pandemic. Oh yeah, weed's legal in your state. Yeah, I realize what you do.
And I'd like to take you guys out when I'm working outside. That way, if I fall out of a tree or something, you're right there to help.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah, a lot of people in chat are always saying that they're at work, and that's why they're always fucking listening to us talk, dude. It's like,
Yeah, no, exactly. That's all like that. They'll just laugh at you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fell out a tree, did you? Sure, sure. We believe you.
This can this can get a little technical if you let it, but I'm going to try to keep it surface level. Can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, yep, yep.
Cool. So the Hardy-Weinberg theorem is a population's genetics theorem that is not, it doesn't exist anywhere in the real world, but gives us a model to understand population genetics and the effects that our actions have on those genetics in the population. So this is like the perfect model where everything has reached equilibrium. There's no, it shows these assumptions down here. There's no natural selection. There's no mutations. There's no immigration or immigration. There's no restriction on population size, and mating is random. So there's no playing favorites. There's no cliques. There's no evolution happening that way. And then this theorem states that from generation to generation, even though the individuals in the population are dying off and breeding and having new babies, and the individuals in the population are swapping out, that the frequency of dominant and recessive alleles will stay the same as long as these assumptions are all true. The moment that you break one of these assumptions, you are performing evolutionary selection, and that's going to produce speciation or evolution and put pressure on that population to produce an adaptation. So this is the perfect model that doesn't exist anywhere in the world, but scientists use this to understand real changes in real populations when they see how those changes affect perfect. So this is just to wrap your head around how a perfect population works when it's reached a natural equilibrium, and it'll stay there. So that's the whole point of this discussion, is just to understand this perfect model, so that in the coming weeks I can start to talk about how we've learned to push population genetics based on breaking these assumptions. So hopefully that kind of helps. The chart on the right I put together yesterday based on a handful of charts and other information I'd gathered. And it shows, this is the right slide. Yeah, it shows the genotypic frequency. So if you move the decimal and you consider the genotypic frequency, the number of individuals that is going to, whoops, I'll go backwards. Previous, there we go. Don't click, Cascadian, don't click.
Bong, bong, bong.
It's the number of individuals that show that genotype. So if they're dominant, they're showing dominant. If they're recessive, they're showing recessive. If they're heterozygous, they're going to show dominant, because the dominant traits are going to override. But that's the green circle. But this is a way to count dominant, recessive, and heterozygous. So this is all assuming that you have the information, like you have the markers for the population at question. This would be 500 individuals, and we're talking about like one gene. I guess I should have specified that earlier. We're talking about one gene, which may not even be a whole trait, just one gene, and the single dominant and the single recessive allele that can perform for that loci, that gene. So this is saying that out of 100 individuals, 49 of them are going to show dominant dominant, capital A, genes for that trait. And then 9 of them are going to show the recessive, the little weirdo that just popped out of nowhere. So you go 100 and you subtract the dominant and you subtract the recessive, and that leaves you the heterozygous in the middle, the 42 in the middle. So this chart goes through and says, if you start with 49 dominant, 42 heterozygous, 9 recessive, these assumptions all hold true, and the population breeds under those assumptions randomly, no pressures, no evolution, immigration, that once everything remixes, the alleles will stay the same. When you get down here to this chart, it shows you the math on how the alleles, the frequency of the alleles don't change, even though the population individuals change.
Can I throw something out there just about the random freaky little mutant? I've got a really cool mutant that I just sprouted that I'm really excited about. Instead of doing leaves in like 2 and then 90-degree turn for the next one and then 2, it's actually got leaves of 3 and the tips form a triangle, and the fucking thing does a 60-degree turn instead of a 90-degree turn. So it's still like splitting them up as much as possible, which just blew my mind.
Are you getting 3 branches too? You should get 3 branches.
It's only the second little node is growing out now, but it looks like that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, every once in a while, there's plants that I could be wrong, but I think they're called trifoliate, and they'll have 3 branches at a node instead of 2, and you'll see that leaf pattern. It's really cool because you get the extra stem, so you get the extra bushiness, but could be a pain if you have to get into the interior of the plant and cut a bunch of those out. But it can really.
It's called World, WHORLED. Does it look?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was quite whorled, because whorled is usually.
Well, it's like 3, and then they're not directly opposite. They twist as they go around, so you get like the spiral of them going up. Yeah.
Yeah, those are always really cool plants when I see them. But I've always wanted to train one to see, because you should get more colas per se, but you might have to do more trimming and training on the inside to clear out all that clutter. But those are awesome, cool looking little plants for sure.
Sounds like to be a good one if you wanted to make it a mom plant.
So this scary equation isn't really that scary if you understand a little bit of basic algebra. They use P as a placeholder for dominant alleles, and they use Q as a placeholder for recessive alleles. And if you know a little bit of algebra, you know that this side of the equation is just an expansion of P plus Q in parentheses squared. And all that means is all P plus Q is all of the dominant alleles plus all of the recessive alleles. And then when you square it, you're saying everybody mated with everybody. So this is just the explosion of that concept, that all the dominants and all the recessive all blended with each other, everybody. And this gives you a little bit of math and a formula to work with to punch in allelic frequencies to understand genomic frequencies. So you're using the frequency of alleles, which I'll elaborate on in just a second, to understand the frequency of homozygous, or capital A, or little a, homozygous, dominant, and recessive plants. So the difference between a genotypic frequency and an allelic frequency is the genotypic frequency is the number of individuals that you see that has the trait. The allelic frequency is the number of alleles in the population, whether you see the trait or not. So in this example, 70% of the alleles, whether they are the first big A or the second big A, 70% of all the alleles in the population are a big A, and 30% of the alleles are a little a. So that's what you're trying to maintain through time is 70% big A's, 30% little A's. Even though individuals are swapping out, dying, being born, the big A, little a ratio doesn't change. You might see variation in the genotypic frequency. When we did this in the lab, we did it with red and yellow beads, and we counted them out of a paper bag blindly to simulate 2 alleles at a gene and randomization. And you'll see a little bit of wavering when you actually like do the numbers in the lab. But if you do it over and over and over again, it oscillates around the genomic frequency. So the actual lab numbers will vary a little bit because they're real life, but it swings and it rotates around the model. So it's really fascinating that it actually does work, and it works on paper. But when you put red and yellow beads in a brown paper bag and you play this game, it still works. You'll get like 47.47 for a genomic frequency on one, and then it'll be like 0.51, and it'll like oscillate up and down around where it's supposed to be. Fascinating stuff. So this whole point is to keep the allelic frequency the same, so that you have 70% dominant, 30% recessive. Just in this example, you can do that for any ratio of dominant to recessive as your starting point. If you happen to know that information of the population in question, this all could be a lot of fun.
Hey, Cascadian, I'm a little bit slow here. Can I go back to the game that you're talking about, taking the beads, the different color beads and stuff out?
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is it all follows a formula of ratios and percentages, and it does work out like that, like the chart says, in ratios and percentages at the end, right? It fluctuates, but at the end, the ratios and percentages show pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the important part to remember is this is a model. So this doesn't exist in nature, but this exists as a lab experiment to understand how this really works, even though there's not an example out there to say that animal does this. This is the numbers work, the theory works. And then from this, we can start to understand like bottlenecking and the founder's effect, which is what happens when like a cannabis seed hunter goes out and grabs a bunch of seeds from farmers and then breaks it down into 10 packs and then, or 100 packs or whatever, and then distributes it across the world. Some of that is bottlenecking and the founder effect live in action. But to explain to you how, firstly, what the bottleneck and the founder effect is, and then explain to you how their actions are those things, I got to start with this model, and then we can elaborate, and I can get into real world situations and what's actually happening to cannabis and what we're actually doing when we open pollinate a 10 pack. And it's going to get more fun, but just hang with me through this, guys, and understand that this isn't real, but it's crucial to understand what I'm trying to teach you next.
Cascadian, man, this is awesome. I sadly I do have to take off, but this is fucking great, man. And I'm definitely going to finish watching it later because you're right. It's fascinating stuff. So
yeah, man, don't worry. You got most of it. There's only a couple minutes left. So
cool. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Hopefully I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Stay safe.
Good luck with the sale.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
So Cascadian, does this kind of go back to the idea that it's like a coin flip? No matter how many times in a row you flip it, it's still 50-50 odds. And if you get a sample size large enough, we're always going to go back to roughly these ratios.
Basically, yeah.
You average out the sample. If you like that lab experiment, if you averaged out the results over doing it 100 times, you'd come up with these ratios for the average outcome.
And then if you plotted it on a graph, all of your results, and you found the best fit line, these results.
Skew around this as a mathematical mean.
Yeah, these numbers would be that line of best fit for sure.
Yeah.
So just to break down the chart a little bit here, I talked a bit about the genomic frequency. This is, if you add these up, they all go to 1. Just like this equation, all goes to 1. How this went from 0.49 to 245 is because the genomic frequency is of 1 or 100, and the number of individuals in the chart is 500, so it was multiplied by 5. 49 times 5 is 245. We're just counting individuals here. So you have 245 individuals that are capital A, capital A. That means they have 2 A's, so they count twice. 245 times 2 plus the 210 from the heterozygous gives you 700 big A's in this pool. On the other side, you do the math, same thing, 210 little A's in the heterozygous. 45 is 9 times 5. Add those together, 300. So you have 700 to 300. That's your 7 to 3 ratio of your 10 individuals, your 0.7, your 0.3. That's how all the math worked here. This is 700 over the total 1,000 alleles in 500 individuals. So it's just trying to lay it out for you guys. And then down here is just math to get you to 1 to prove that it all works.
The book of 1 + 1 = 2. It's like this. It's a tone.
Oh, you talking about the proof? Yeah.
Yeah.
The proof is wild. Of 1 + 1 = 2. It's wild. So yeah, this last part just reiterates that this is a model. This isn't applicable to any known population. And then when you break those assumptions I mentioned, evolution occurs, speciation occurs, differentiation occurs, selective breeding, any sort of that stuff that we do or don't do, mean to do, don't mean to do, that all happens when you break those assumptions. So with that, if there's any questions, if I missed anything, if anything's not clear, let me know. If I feel like I just talked for 10 minutes and nobody knows what I'm talking about, we can address that too.
No, that was great. And I think it's definitely one of those things that it highlights what the seed breeding is all about. And well, not to seed breeding, genetics. It's actually all a stats game, because until we have equipment that allows us to look at it at the genetic level, we're doing it all at the phenotypic expression level. And that way, the only way we can do it is the fact that those phenotypic expressions are the genotype in that environment expressing itself. But I have to go, then now if I understand the ratios of different phenotypes I'm seeing, I can understand roughly what the makeup is of some of the genotypes, and therefore start to work out what, as I track it through generations, I can work out what the alleles at play happen to be. And so I can start to create the Punnett squares, because we do these examples in the Punnett squares, but they're just examples that get used. Yeah, you can start to figure some stuff out and actually put real world bits and pieces through that Punnett square of things that you've actually been able to identify in the plant and test out your theory, because you could see it. If I actually model this and then I look at what I've got, does the model kind of fit what I've produced?
Well, it seems like the theorem, you want to look at the theorem, say, this is the base and this is how it breaks down and goes down. But it seems like the theorem was created because of how Mendel drew up the Punnett square and so forth. So the results of the ratios from Mendel's Punnett square actually created this theorem at the end, because there's a mathematical process to what we're doing by selection. We're seeing the dominant and recessives, and we're counting in our mind or by feel the ratios that and we never had a chart like this to base it on. But that chart kind of tells us that we were doing the right thing through our selection process, because it in my mind, just by the way we were selecting without the number, being able to see the numbers and how they work, we were still coming out with the same results with the ratios. So it kind of what I'm saying is my experience says that that chart's very accurate. But you'll, like you said, Cascadian, it's a perfect pair of parents, and there's no such thing as a perfect pair of parents in our biological world. So this is an assumption, and it's really cool to see if you can prove that assumption through different breeding experiments.
Mm, mm.
I mean, I'm kind of too old for this, but this is like a good thing for somebody to get into for the next 10 or 15 years to really dig deep into it. It really is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not a light subject. Like, oh yeah, I'll just pick this up for the weekend.
Oh, it's a beautiful subject. It's so cool to see how what I was exposed to in breeding, how it's elevated to this technical sense because of the technology we have, and we can share, and we got graphs, and we got all this knowledge we can pull from the internet, and we have someone like Cascadian to share it with us. It's just amazing. I didn't have this kind of access to information when I was growing up. It was more solo or solitude, going through books and going to the library and encyclopedia. But they're actually teaching this stuff in college, and you can relate it to what we're doing in the cannabis world. It's great. The next generation, I can just see great things happening with everybody, getting involved here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When I was a kid, you had to read a book. That's kind of my story. I had to read books.
I'm
Yep.
super excited for the next couple talks because I really love digging into how the bottleneck effect and the founders effect and how gene flow all affects population genetics. And so hopefully I don't get too carried away on the next couple talks, but yeah, it was a lot of fun to give this one. I'm still waiting for a bunch of questions here. I've only found one so far. So
Yeah, sorry, I was hooked on the talk and I wasn't
oh, you're good. You're good.
the questions too much. But yeah, this does then, like it was mentioned off at the head of the show, what you're seeing there is all stuff that's been leading into, that's part of that selection process, what we're picking as we're breeding. And when you first start out, it is fairly daunting. What am I actually trying to do? You might want to be getting into it, and for people who've been doing it for quite some time, you have you just got natural eye. Oh, yeah, this is going to bring that, but you've worked with that plant for a very long time. But when you first start out, what are some of the, like some of the traits that are easy to like follow through? Like, is there definitely something about leaf serration? Like, okay, really serrated leaves, you can follow that trait fairly easily through. How do you track that? What are some traits that are easy to track, that are readily identifiable, that you can quantify in some way, where it's not a feeling trait? Those are always the difficult ones, the ones that are subjective rather than objective. So I think you've got to try and keep to objective traits is what you're looking for.
Yeah, there you go. I wanted to add on that here, Pete, if I could, real quick. There's a lot of people looking for mutants and different leaf traits, the way they look, and so forth. Unless there's a proven link between the leaf, the way the plant it grows, and the way physically, and the way it finishes, and the potency and terpenes that it puts out, there really is no purpose for looking for that unless you can correlate it. Right, so you're guessing. You're hoping that this plant's going to be awesome because it has a weird leaf or whatever. I'm saying go backwards. Smoke the plant at the end, and then go back and see if it had a weird leaf growing up. And if it does, then you're blessed. But the end product's what we want. It's not the process, right? It's people with my testers. They always ask me, "You want shots of veg plants and stuff?" Yeah, they're great. If you want to do it, but I'm after the bud. I want to see how you feel about the flower. And the process is great. Everybody knows how to grow. I mean, most people know, are here that they can grow a plant through that. But the flowers, what as breeders, that's what we should be focused on, because it's all about selection. And when we're doing selection is not easy. It's got to be when you have a good crop and you buy seeds from someone that's really well, they do their job very well. You're not going to have an easy selection. You're going to have like 3 or 4 that you're not going to want to throw away. And the average person will keep those 3 or 4, but you're watering down your genetics. You don't do that. You want to keep the very, very best, no matter what, the one. Okay, throw everything out. And you've got to be able to do that to be a breeder. I mean, in my opinion. So that's my. I'm sorry about interrupting there.
No. I mean, well, that's just it. Because if the goal of breeding, especially if you're going to, I think if you're doing it with the aim to release something rather than just a hobby, and I'm just doing it as a hobby in my backyard, having some fun. That's great. Go wild, do whatever you want, play around with it. But if you're actually breeding, the idea is to bring something that's better than what already exists. I mean, that's the criteria if you're doing it in normal ag. If you want to release some new corn, for example, it's got to be better than corn that's already on the market. Otherwise, what are you bringing to the market? Just stuff that reduces the overall genetics that are out there. You're bringing something weaker to the table, which is not what they're interested in.
Or you enhancing
that,
the previous parents. You're bringing something like the structure. You're enhancing the structure or the smell or the flavor or something of the parents. Other than that, I don't know what some people are doing. They're just
and it's got to be repeatable as well. I mean, getting lucky once is getting lucky once. The true sign is I can repeat it over and over and over again. So you've worked and stabilized your material, and I think that's it. There's very few that can actually do that, I think, in my opinion. I think it's getting more of them, but there's still very few. And I think quite a few rely on other people's hard work to produce two stable lines that they happen to bring together rather than they worked two stable lines with a vision in mind of what they were trying to bring together.
I don't think it's few that can do it. I think it's few that have released the work that's done to do it because they're smart about what they're going to release. Like right now, they're releasing jumbles. And like, trust me, you got individuals that's been breeding for 20, 30 years. They perfected, they have something that's stable enough to put to the market, but they're not going to do it because they know what's going to happen to them until they can patent it or get some type of protection for that seed stock. I mean,
well, I disagree a little bit with you there, country, only because I feel I look at breeders as our job is to create the next best always. So there's nothing, in my opinion, there's no such thing as something that's going to be the best forever, because that thing could be better next year with another find or another project or whatever. So, as a breeder, I don't care if people use my stuff because I can make something better. I've done it. People have stole my stuff way in the past. So what are you going to do? Break down their door and take the plant back? No, you can't do that stuff. So what you do is you challenge yourself. You can have my stuff, but I'm going to make something better next year. Something even better than that next year. So that's what, in my opinion, even in dogs or horses, whatever you breed, you don't want to be stagnant and just use that whatever and patent that, right? Because someone's going to come up with one step better, and you're going to be that second or third on the list.
I mean, I agree with you, but if you look at what we've already seen within the vegetable world, I mean, it's already proof that, I mean, we've seen it. Monsanto runs basically, them and Sargenta have all the vegetables. I mean, that's just what it is. We've seen what happens to smaller farmers. So why would a smaller cannabis farmer even try to do that when we already see we can't protect ours, just like they can't protect tomatoes?
But there was never a force that says let's protect our tomatoes. We can't do that in cannabis because I'm not going to let my stuff go to Monsanto. I'll protect it as much as I can to keep it underground and keep it in the community. But if it ends up in Monsanto, well, so be it. I'll create something better. They'll be stuck with that shit. Just like the commercial shit, the commercial growers in my state. If you guys are listening, who are my ex-employees, fuck you. They took all my shit, and they think that they're happy with that shit. But I'm making something better. That was 7 years ago. I got way better shit than what they got in their grows right now. So I'm not.
See, that's where the difference between like the people that just take somebody else's hard work and slam it together and make something new. That's the problem. Is that's all that they can do. They don't have. I know we used this analogy a few times, and it was thanks to Jim F coming up with it once. Was the paint mixers? There's a difference between mixing. The true breeders are actually creating primary color paints and working with primary color paints, and then they're creating some blends of colors, but they know they've got all of the primary colors themselves. And all that you're doing when you're buying it is you're buying the mix. You're buying purple. You're not buying red and blue. You're buying purple. You don't have red and blue in your stable. You're not going to do anything that requires red and blue. You only do purple now. You might be able to mix it with something else and get purple and something else and wind up with brown eventually. As always seemed to be the case when you mix all the colors together in the in the crayon pens.
if I can throw an idea out here, I don't know that. And hi, Tyler, by the way. Good to see you, buddy. Hi, Schwoob.
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you. Good to have you. I don't know that the direct, and this is going to sound crazy, I don't know that the direct example is food, right? This is where I'm always saying I think we're more like the craft beer market, where, yeah, you're going to have the large players that want to put out the same product every year, but then the real people who appreciate it, they're going to be looking for something new. They're going to be looking for something different. They want to taste the new thing you made this week. You know, that's like me. I'll buy a $10 six-pack once, but I ain't going back a second time unless it's really something special. But I'll try anything once. So, and I think a lot of consumers are that way. We love to try new things, especially when it comes to things we appreciate. And I think that's what it is. It's about how much, yes, the tomato is like weed. Yes, beer is like weed, but we value beer like we value weed, where we think of it as an art and a craft and all that stuff, whereas we look at a tomato as more sustenance and food. Not everyone appreciates the tomato for how beautiful it is. That's my 2 cents. Sorry.
I agree with him because, you know, about 10, 12 years ago, I kind of just, instead of the beer market, I said cannabis, when it becomes legal, will emulate the wine market. I thought it was more like the wine. You're going to see really low costing wine and really super expensive wine, you know, in that type of market. So yeah, I totally agree with GMF on that. I don't agree. I don't think that it's going to be like food, like tomatoes. But I do agree with GMF on that.
Oh yeah, I mean, the way the breeding is going though, it's going to be like tomatoes, where you're going to have Walmarts of just one type of bush that grows a certain way. That's just what they're already doing it in hemp. Like they're growing massive hectares of straight one monocrop of hemp. Like it makes no sense. Like, and you're going out there and you smell strictly what they tell you you're going to smell. You'll smell this cherry smell, but the ending product is, you know, okay, we know what that is. You got your craft grower, but you have this already. It's coming to cannabis. That's just what's going to happen. That's the way. That's the only way they're going to make their money, because, like we all know, the craft growers are killing the market right now. We see it all the way around, from California, Oregon, and everywhere. The customer is getting smarter, so they're going to the smaller market. But you still have those budget guys that's going to go for that Walmart weed. That's just what it is.
As long as we don't let them control our males and take them out of the circulation, just femmes, as long as there's regulars out there, they can't control the market. You know what I mean? There's no way. But once they turn everything into feminized, and you can't get any males out of your seed packs, because it almost happened. When I was buying seeds about 10, 12 years ago, or however long ago, everything started going femmes. And I was hunting down regulars, and UK wasn't selling anything out of their banks as femme or regulars. It was hard to find regulars. So just it could happen.
Yep.
That's scary.
Thank goodness for land races. Wild weed, at least we'll be able to hopefully always get males from that selection.
Now, you know, I had a chance to interview breeder Steve a few months ago, and one of the most interesting topics that he touched on was he's working on, and this guy knows his genetics. He knows how to breed. I mean, he was one of the pioneers. He was he talked about making female plants sterile, not male pollen sterile, the other way around. And he said he could do it. And that's scary. You know, I bless him. He's doing it for his purposes, and I understand what he's doing it for, because he believes that, you know, if these commercial growers, they don't want to risk having any pollinated plants from a hemp farm next door or whatever. And I understand that. But that's scary when it comes into the wrong hands too, because when they can control our genetics like that and the breeding, then you're talking Monsanto type of stuff, right?
Hey Pete, wasn't I talking about that a couple months ago? I told you, in hemp,
Yeah.
they're already there. They're already creating that. Like, you have major companies that can run a whole field of hemp, put males out, and it's not going to pollinate it, dude. Right now, they've done it.
Yeah, it's a place up in Oregon with a polytriploid, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're leading them, and it's one other company over in Spain right now that's leading the market in the research and what they're doing with this. It's crazy.
That we didn't learn our lesson from bananas, did we?
Yeah, exactly. We should take our lessons from the foods that we eat. Bananas, potatoes, avocados, all that shit is bland now. You know what I mean? We don't have the variety that when I was a kid, and I went to the market. I mean, shit tasted good. The cantaloupes, the watermelon had seeds in it. I mean, it was all good food. You couldn't even
You
pick out.
actually have. You know what? That's funny, B, that you mentioned that. You got to pheno hunt your food now. You have
I
to run like
know.
100 or 100 or some peppers before you find that really good one. It's crazy.
No, yeah, yeah. So, so from go back from your experience, then Emma, when you've been growing, are there certain things that you've noticed that there are these link traits that you do see follow through, and there are some common ones that
Yeah.
are like good indicators for people to look out for?
Good question. Great question, actually. And the strongest one that I know of, and it relates to medical, is there's. I'm not saying every purple strain, but there's a terpene in the purple strains that really enhance appetite for cancer patients that are going through chemo. It's an appetite enhancer. So it's a lot of the purple, granddaddy purples, purple urkel, those have that terpene that increase the appetite. So that's one that I would say that has a trait that's linked into properties of the high. You know what I mean?
And those are ones where they turn purple naturally, not just because as in, they're dark colored plants. They're, as opposed to, they only turn purple at the very end if you play around with temperature, etc.
Yeah, they'll purple up no matter what temperature. In 100 degrees, they'll purple up. Just at the end, they turn purple. That's the way they finish. There's some true purples that do that. That used to be anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying it's an effect correlation that you find. So it's an effect correlated to a particular expression of anthocyanins and senescence.
Yes, and I talked another good person to talk to about this because he's really into the medical part of that for the digestive system, and he's really into his purple strains. As a matter of fact, I want if anybody has problems with medical and they need a good purple strain, go to Mad Farmer. The dude's been working purple strains for a long, long time, and he's really good. You talk to him, if you send him an email, connect with him, tell him your problems, he will work with you. The dude is a down to earth guy. So yeah.
Now, are these based in ruderalis strains, or are these purple from other things? Where does this purple line come from, you think?
Well, I don't. That's a good question. The purples that I knew of came out of Oregon. The first purples that was back in the '80s and stuff when it started coming around. Basically, they came out of Oregon. That was my friends were out of Oregon, so they brought the purples up here to Washington and spread them.
Salem Purple Indica out of Salem, Oregon.
Well, I can't tell you. I don't know exactly what part of Oregon. It could be down south, Salem or whatever. But I just know that it came out of Oregon. And these people, they didn't live in one part of Oregon. They were living in different. So it was pretty much all over the state of Oregon. So they got to have the credit for that. Purple Urkel came, Purple Urkel. I don't even know the sources, but I know that good Purple Urkel, the real Purple Urkel, came from Oregon recently when I lost my cut. And then the Granddaddy Purple was Salmon Creek Big Bud crossed to Purple Urkel. So that was created in Oregon, So Oregon has.
Pretty sure those purples come from Pakistan.
Yeah, so they're like the coast.
Probably if you want to trace them back to the Eastern lineage, probably so. I would probably agree.
I can taste it. There's a flavor associated with that purple, which might be related to the terpene that you're talking about that my palate absolutely hates. And it sticks out in purple strains all over the cannabis genome. And I'm pretty sure it all comes from a purple Pakistani acquisition that came over early in cannabis breeding, because that purple flavor, that signature purple flavor, I hate it, and it's all over in cannabis. At least
like husky.
It's in like American commercial cannabis.
Mine's PCK. You said that the PCK cut that you think I have I didn't have it. I obviously, but all my stuff is crossed with. It throws a real heavy purple, and it's Pakistani Chitral Kush.
It's a very particular shade of purple too. When it comes through really strong, it's a vibrant sort of purple. It's not a dark royal purple. It almost glows.
Weird. Yeah, I don't get that. Mine are crosses. But... Thanks, Jeffy.
Yeah, I smoked.
Yeah, because I think one of the other traits you hear about that's like a link one, or like there's correlation is between leaf serration and powdery mildew tolerance. Definitely seen some research. I should find it again where that they did some studying into that, and I can't remember which way around it was, but plants that were, I think, like really heavily serrated were more resistant to powdery mildew than ones that were less smooth edged serrated leaves. Tested by putting a heavily powdery mildewed plant in amongst all of them and seeing which ones got it, and it was that sort of line. So if you're maybe in an area where that's a problem, or you're breeding for outdoors, these are other traits that you'd be looking to lock in if you can. I suppose there's always the catch that you might not be able to lock it in because it doesn't come with, maybe, as an extreme example, that heavy serration also means low THC, and there's just no way around it. You can't have both. Whatever creates the high THC gene prevents that heavy serration kicking in. So that's the other bit, is admitting when you can't actually separate. Not everything can be separated off. There are bits that come together. They will always move together. There's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. But yeah,
Pete, I've never witnessed that though, because if you have a problem, I think that you could outcross and breed the recessives back, and you still can hook a trait into, let's say, structure when you're talking about leaf serration. But let's say your base strain, if your dominant plant, your female plant is dominant, and you got good terpenes and good THC profile, resin profile, and then your male plant, you're going for serration, even though that they didn't link in the first. And it's possible that through recessives, you can get it to work out if you further down the line. You don't want to scratch it. You want to see what, breed the filial generations down to see if you could see a link back into where which you're trying to get to. I just believe that anything by nature you can alter because of ratios and stuff, like we were talking about the theorem earlier. That there's a mathematical process of how that works, and I believe that if you understand that mathematical process, you can use it to your advantage in linking traits. They do with chicken. They purposely linked. I forget the name of the breed, but they come linked. But anyways, they link these chickens to a certain color when they're baby chicks. They're females. I mean, I forget, but they're the same breed. But if they're males, they have a different color system. So they're sex linked. They're called sex linked. So if they can do that in breeding, artificial breeding in chickens, I'm sure that if we knew and people did enough research and breeding projects that things like that probably can happen. It would be a hard thing to do, especially if you see in a negative, 3 or 4 filial generations down, you're not seeing anything happen. But there's always an outcross that you can put in there that'll force something and link.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there are some things that you're just unfortunately never going to be able to separate. And then you also got the co-dominance bit. So what you might discover is when you get them together, you're going to have like pink instead of red. So you can have both red and white are dominant, but when you bring them together, you get pink. So that's what you certainly wind up with. Less of a thing necessarily in our space. I don't know. I mean, maybe there are a number of co-dominant traits, but again, those are all those weird. It just goes to show when what we're discussing here at single allele level and 2 different alleles at best. When you expand it out and out and out, it gets like, whoa, okay, really complicated, and you realize just how many different combinations can spring up. And then when you start to track it through the lines and you say, okay, so this is how many genes are on this, and this is the number of combinations that you can spring up from it.
Right, the people that these what we're talking about, the projects that we're talking about, the filial generations 1, 2, 3 down, and doing the multiple searches and stuff. You got to realize that this isn't you just don't talk about it and do it in 4 or 5 months, right? This is years. This is like a decade's worth of searching and crossing and trying to link things with different traits. I mean, you just and when you put 5 years into a project and you're trying to force this link to happen, it's so hard to give up. I mean, you're trying to find the peanut butter on an outcross. It'll keep these two loaves of bread together and end up as a decent sandwich at the end, right? So you alter, you kind of go a certain direction. Say maybe I will go with this not as serrated, and maybe I can force a serration with another cross through the F string, F generations, right? So what I'm saying is once you get involved with a project so deep. It's almost a lifetime project at that point, 5, 10 years. I mean, it's like you can't
I
give
would
up.
say absolutely easily, if not quite a bit longer. Again, you look at the commercial crops. I mean, they're talking up to 13 years in some cases before they can bring a new crop to market because of all the testing they've had to do with it as well. But as you say, you do a cross. If in the ideal world you would cross every one in the F1 generation, you would cross amongst itself so that you could see every potential combination that F1, and then look at everything that came out in the F2 generation from that F1 cross to be able to see, and then again cross everything in there to eventually whittle down to the F3s. But that isn't, we don't have that luxury, unfortunately, but still you're doing it for 10 or 15 or 20 of them, and depending on your space, that might be 3-4 growth cycles that you've got to go through to be able to filter them out.
But see, while you're doing those F1 and you're almost there, this is where you go outside and pull in an outside outcross to kind of solidify. It has the traits that will add to what you're doing, and then you use those genetics and you start making F generations down under that.
Another whole range of F generations. Yeah. Okay. I mean, and then at some point you back cross it to one of the original parents again, or to something earlier on in that line that you were interested, and then that starts its whole new filial generation that springs from that, because it's now different to everything else in its F2, its original F2 generation that it produced, or F1 generation that it produced from whatever familial generation it was in.
You said a very important thing in that equation is the back cross, right? And do you want to go into why you would do that? Because that is
there's different. I mean, we did a thing on it. There's two purposes for doing back crossing. It's either you're now trying to lock in a trait and stabilize and produce a new stable line, or you're using it as a test because you know what one of the grandparents is. So you can, every time you test it against it, if you know it's pure recessive, you can always check to see if you've got something that's homozygous or heterozygous by doing the back cross, because if any of the recessive trait flares up, what you crossed with was heterozygous, whereas if none of it flares up, it was homozygous that you used. So you can filter out your selection criteria process a little bit quicker if you know what they are.
That's a great little stint that you put out there, because that's you can use your back cross as a tool, as a breeding tool to kind of filter out what you're doing, like you said. But you know what? To me, one of the most important parts of back crossing is solidifying your traits that you were putting together in the first place, right? You're looking for high resin with the I forget what we're talking about at first, that serrated leaf and a certain trait. Okay, now when you find something like that, you feel like you got it in the mom, but you don't have it in the father, but you want to lock it in. So you've got other traits that you like in the father, in plant structure, whatever you can add. That's when you do the back cross to solidify that in the seeds. You're going to come out with a higher percentage of the traits that you selected in the first place, right? So that's, to me, a back cross is very important when you start doing stuff like filial generations down. Just as once you get what you want, that's when you start focusing on your traits. That's when the ratios start coming into higher. Like the theorem that was brought up earlier, then you start seeing that come into fact, because then you're doing more back crossing, and you start layering all the genetics on top of each other that way.
Trying to see, where did I? Is it this one? Secretly, convergent process.
And I feel like I'm in a college here learning.
So look, I got a question for you. Lemon Hoko, do you think, when you said about commercial potatoes, how they're bland, do you think because they bred the mold resistance into it that they lost the flavor because of that?
Well, you remember back in when I was a young gentleman, they didn't have so much selective breeding and isolation of certain strains of potatoes. I mean, you could go to, especially, okay, let's use tomatoes as an instance. You can go, went to the grocery store and see a regular Safeway type of Piggly Wiggly you would see like 20 different types of tomatoes. Now you see maybe 2 or 3. I mean, it's the selection, what they're offering. And a lot of it has to do with shelf life and stuff, because they can't make a lot of dollars if they got these sweet tomatoes that rot real quick. So they just go with the tomatoes that give you the best shelf life. I don't know if you guys ever noticed it. You bring home fruit now, it doesn't rot. You bring home apples and it sits on the fucking shelf for 3 weeks without bruising. It's just
Yep.
weird stuff.
And I don't know, like, I'm not trying to say anything about how old you are, Lemon Hoko, but like, I remember grocery stores. Basically, what you're talking about is when people used to actually source locally for that stuff, and it was seasonal. Now people expect tomatoes in winter. No matter if they live in places that are negative, 10 degrees, they expect a tomato in the grocery store. And I think that's really the difference. Back in the day, you sourced your stuff locally, so you would get different tomatoes that grew better locally from local farmers.
Well, and to go one beyond that, they expect their tomato in January to be red like it is in July. Like the consumer expectation placed on food and the pressure that comes along with that is why the supermarket looks the way that it does. And it's because people, and when I say people, I mean the majority
no, that's us grocery people's fault. My bad.
of consumers, they expect a certain product, they expect a certain uniformity, they expect a certain what they deem quality, and they expect it to be repeatable and accessible, and that leads to fewer options of things that look similar.
We get in the banana syndrome. Yep.
Right, you can't tell really one Roma tomato from the next 500. They're all Roma tomatoes, but
and that's sad. It's sad for the next generation, because I remember
those foods aren't gone. You're just not going to find them at the store. So quit shopping at the store, and you've got those foods again. Like all those seeds,
that's guys like us growing them and stuff like that.
They still exist. I have a closet full of.
Well, they've been back crossed out of existence.
I have a whole closet full of heirloom vegetable seeds. Like there's hundreds of varieties of heirloom seeds out there. You're just not going to find them at the grocery stores. You might find them at the farmer's market. You might find them at the mom and pop corner shop, but you're not going to find them
your friend's house.
But they're out there. They didn't die and go away. People didn't quit growing them. They're not extinct. They're just
they're not as offered to our society as they used to be, and that shows in the health of our general population. Because if everybody's that shit, we're all getting unhealthy. And when I was a kid, we lived on because my parents were kind of low income and stuff, so we had to go to Kmart and stuff like that for shopping, and all that kind of stuff was accessible even to the lower income people. Now you Cascadian, you're lucky that you can find and source this kind of stuff, but the neighbors over in Shalishan, they don't have that kind of access to look for good food and stuff. It's just bad. I don't think that it should be that way. I mean, food shouldn't be that rare to where we can,
And there are things as food deserts now in our society, places where people cannot buy fresh fruit. They cannot get, decent food, and they're food deserts and they exist. It's a fact, and it's a socioeconomic problem that we have to fix.
Yeah.
Right, but
and we can
just to play devil's advocate, it is a two-way street. Like part of it is the supermarket's fault, but part of it is the consumer voting with their dollar. They're the one that chooses to park at the fucking grocery store or go inside and shop there. Like that's their fault. However you want to shake a stick at it, that's their fault. These food deserts exist because people make those convenient choices to go shop at the supermarket instead of support a local farmer.
But are we seeing the same type of thing in the cannabis industry? Because it's really hard to find quality bud in the state right now, unless you go through the commercial and you have to buy their top shit. I don't know. I've never bought commercial weed, so I guess what I'm hearing is they have shit on the top shelf that's supposed to be better than others and it's priced more. But is that the way?
I think what we're saying, and that is the way the laws were written, only a few could get in on the jump start, and they didn't have the knowledge. So they utilized what they could to get it up and running. And the ones that are now able to get in where we can fit in are actually showing that our craft is something that has been passed down and learned for generations. And we actually put work into what we really do. We pride it as a medicine because most of us use it as a medicine. Whereas the average Joe that, is a grower for a commercial, he doesn't even smoke. It's a difference. He doesn't correlate. He doesn't have a connection with the plant.
So
it's
true.
very few that's at that level that have that connection with the plant.
Yep, bingo. Connection with the plant. That's what we all should be having, is our connection with the plant.
Just just before we wrap up, then just quickly, I know going back onto that onto the backcross thing, but just as an example of why the backcrossing, you're locking the trait from the donor into the recipient, and just how quickly going through the generation. So the F1 generation that you then take and backcross, and so you start to produce the backcross line. So the backcross one, suddenly already that's 75% now of the original recipient. So the mom that you're crossing it back with, for instance, or the dad, doesn't really matter which one, whichever is the recipient parent that you're doing with the cross. So by the time you hit backcross 4, you're up to like 96% of the original parent. Anybody, I don't know why you would take it to backcross 8 or beyond. At some point it's like, okay, we're back to the original parent. Now this might be if you've taken a clone only or a cut only that you had. You want to start being able to produce regular seeds from it. So you pick any male, it doesn't really matter what it is, for argument's sake, cross it with that clone only cut that you had, and then back cross everything through that over time. Just keep doing it over and over and over again until eventually you've literally just hooked the male gene piece so that it can produce genuine male plants, but that entire line would become almost like the original parent, and you could stabilize the parent line as well. Remove all of the recessive, all the heterozygous allele combinations, and just wind up with a homozygous plant by the end of it. And that now also produces regular seeds, etc. But it's very quickly that when you're doing the backcross, you really do whip out the original, the donor plant's genes get stripped out fairly quickly.
But there's a danger to backcrossing too, because you're doing all the good traits, but you're also multiplying the bad traits by those ratios also. So you got your selection and your discernment on what you push forward is very, very important in doing backcrossing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great chart. And I don't know why our industry goes by backcross 4 as cubed, and that's where it's kind of, but that's always been like that since I can remember. It was written in the forums about 12, 15 years ago. And it's just kind of been the industry standard to go backcross 4, but to be cubed, and that's kind of the end game for your genetics. Well, not the end game. People could go down further, but there's really, like you said, there's really no reason to if you've got 96% of your mom plant already locked up in it.
And so on that note, it would draw the live part of the show to an end, and we'll kick into the after show piece for another at least 45 minutes or so. So while we do that, if we want a quick wrap up, where can everybody find everybody? Let's start with GMF. How are you doing, sir? Where can everybody find you, sir?
Easiest way is Instagram, or I'm also hanging out in Lemon Hoko's Discord. I'm also hanging out at Fumi's place, or here at Operation Grow. But hit me on Instagram if I can be helpful. If anybody's got food questions, fermentation questions, weed questions, whatever. Genetic Memory Farms on Instagram. And thank you, Pete, for making a platform for us to edify ourselves.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here. And if you want to do the Patreon, I'll just put it up in the thing there again. As I said, what we're looking to do there is maybe start to be able to pass out some of the seeds from various stages of the breeding project. So if you're a patron, you'll be in for the option for that, which would be great. It'll be quite good fun. Raptor,
thank you to our
disappeared,
special guest,
actually.
Lemon, too. Thanks for coming by, bud.
Hey, it's good talking to you, bro. Always is.
I see Raptor seems to have disappeared, maybe down the philosopher's rabbit hole with these philosopher's stones. Somebody said these were mild. They're careering through the background. So then Tyler, you've been quietly hidden away there. Where can everybody find you, sir?
Instagram at Shwooby-Doo, and on Cannabuzz, it's the Growing Buds.
Excellent. Country, where can we find you, sir?
You can find me at Underground Organics on IG and Country Boy VA on Cannabuzz. and right around here sometimes. I'm always here. So yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. Good. Hang on, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to the people who just joined. I'm just going to pause your video on that because we are still live on YouTube. And then Cascadian, who's just disappeared as well, down that same Philosopher's Stone rabbit
Raptor's
hole.
back.
Raptor's back. Hang on. They're not on shot at the same time.
How's it going? The magic of the
Raptor,
stones.
yeah, exactly. Raptor, where can everybody find you, sir?
I'll just do my outros real quick. I'm at Raptor Grow, all one word, all lowercase on Instagram. You can find me here, Operation Grow, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Saturdays, and 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time at Fumador and the Flavors. Buds with Brews tonight. Looking forward to talking with you all. Yeah, lots of fun. Got a pretty good harvest
Fantastic.
considering it was just half the jar that was I scooped through. So yeah, gonna be a good night.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cascadian.
Excellent.
Did you say your goodbyes?
Yeah, man. Find me on Instagram, Cascadian Grown. You find me here hanging out with Pete and the guys. Find me with Raptor sometimes on Fumi's show. Saturdays usually now. So I should see you guys tonight. Other than that, yeah, man. Find me on Instagram if you're looking for me.
Excellent. And Lefty, are you still driving, sir?
I'm not driving, I'm riding, but yeah, I'm still here, brother.
Okay, you're riding. All right, where can we find you, buddy?
Lefty's Farm on IG and Lefty's Farm on Cannabis. And thanks to Lem for stopping by with all the great info. Sucked up a lot of knowledge today and really enjoyed the breeder cast, buddy.
Excellent. And then on that note, Lemon, Hoko, where can everybody find you, sir? Thank you for stopping by, and hopefully you hang out for a while in the after chat with everybody. But yeah, where can we all find you?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks. Like GMS said, thanks for giving us this platform, Pete. You know, like this kind of technology is going to touch a lot of new growers and a lot of new people that are going to be motivated. And it's just impressive and amazing, man. I get goosebumps whenever I see a panel of talented people with open minds that like to discuss cannabis and what we love. So you can find me on lemonhoko.genetics on Instagram. But I invite everybody to come over to my Discord. It's another kind of community type of thing. The reason why I made that community on Discord is because I was getting banned. Like I got banned off of Instagram 3 times, and I got tired of it. It was like I still wanted to connect with my friends, so we're on Discord too. So I invite you guys to come on over to Discord. If you have any questions, DM me on Instagram, and I'll walk you through it. It's pretty easy. But thanks again, Pete, and thanks for the panel. You guys have been great. And, Lefties, we got to chat, man. I know you got some stuff going. I'd like to see what you got going. So if you can jump on my Discord, I'd like to invite you over to the BreederCast as a guest one of these days.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, you can catch me at Peel Grow Systems on Instagram and at Operation Grow 2019 on Instagram, or also here on YouTube. Or any one of the other mentioned shows that got mentioned. There's so many kicking around these days, it's crazy. But it's always a similar little crowd that turns up. So on that note, we shall